Om. 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 Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu, ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we acquire the capacity to study and understand the scriptures. May our study be brilliant, and may we not cavil at each other. Om peace, peace, peace unto us all.
Sai Ram. Welcome to the Sri Sathya Sai Center of Arcadia, and a very warm and special welcome to our guest speaker, Mrs. Sarojini Kanagala, all the way from Dallas, Texas. Thank you, dear sister. So we are in for a wonderful treat tonight. I'm going to read her bio, and then she will give us this wonderful talk on this auspicious day. Mrs. Sarojini Kanagala is a long-time devotee of Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. She enthusiastically shares Swami's love and message through her inspiring talks and books. She is married to Mr. Shyam Kanagala, who serves as the regional president of Region 10 of SSSIO, USA. Swami graciously performed their wedding in the year 1988 in Puttaparthi. She and her husband, along with their 2 sons, live in Dallas, Texas. Sarojini has authored a book in Telugu titled Sai Spandana, Sai's Divine Response for Swami's 85th birthday. She also co-authored a book along with her husband titled Faith, Hope, and Love for Swami's 90th birthday. She is the eldest daughter of Professor Anil Kumar Kamaraju, who translated Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba's Divine Discourses. Professionally, she is a Montessori school teacher with many, many years of experience of teaching. Dear sister, welcome to our center. And we are, thank you so much. I know it's late for you, and we are looking forward to hearing beautiful words of wisdom from you. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. Akaramayi, ukaramayi, makaramayi, omkaramayi. Akaramayi, ukaramayi, makaramayi, omkaramayi. Akaramayi, ukaramayi, makaramayi, omkaramayi. I offer my humble pranams at the lotus feet of Divine Mother and beloved Bhagawan, who are responsible for creation, sustenance, and dissolution of this entire universe. Loving Sai Rams to respected elders, brothers and sisters and children, thank you all for inviting me for this satsang. Thank you, Brother Sai Krishna and Sister Sridevi, for coordinating and for your kind communication. As we celebrate these 9 days of Devi Navaratris at our homes, We do remember and recall those unforgettable moments, sweet memories we've had in the presence of Bhagawan during Navaratris at Puttaparthi. We would see all these Ritviks and priests coming and assembling in front of the mandir, and Bhagawan would very lovingly honor them with those saffron robes. And Bhagawan would inaugurate the Veda Purusha Saptaha Yajna, and all these priests who are experts and scholars in Vedas and also in scriptures would perform various pujas, Ganesh Puja, Rudrabhishekam, Chandi Homam, sun salutations, and several other rituals are performed. And all of this is focused on the well-being of the world. And Swami would arrive gently in the procession, surrounded by all these Ritviks, while they are chanting Vedam, and the band boys will be in front of Swami, and Sai Gita would be majestically walking forward. And when we look at Bhagavan with his brilliance, he would look like Mahavishnu, surrounded by celestial beings. Swami, in one of his Telugu poems, he shared about his previous incarnation and the connection he had with his devotees. He says, "A Ramachandrude Sai Ramachandrudai tana bantulanu kanugonaga vache." The same Rama has come in the form of Sai Rama to recognize his army. Ananda Baludai tana varini gurtimpa tarali vache. The same Krishna, blissful child of Nanda and Yashoda, he has come in the form of Sai Krishna to recognize his gopis and gopalas. A Ishude Bala Sai Ishudai ita tana gumputo adukonaga vache. The same Ishvara has come in the form of Sai Ishvara to play with his friends. A Mahavishnuve I Mahi Vishnuvai ita tana ayudhamulu chekonaga vache. Bhagavan says, the Mahavishnu from Vaikunta, he has come in the form of Sai Vishnu to take his instruments, which are his devotees, so he can use all of us in his divine mission. Brahmasri Gandikota Subramanya Shastri Garu wrote beautifully about Bhagavan's Tattvam and the details of the Veda Purusha Saptaha Yajna and how all these beautiful ceremonies are conducted during Navratri time in his book titled Sri Sathya Sai Avatar Vaibhavam, or Glory of Sri Sathya Sai Avatar. So he shares a unique experience. On one Shankara Jayanti day, Bhagavan had asked Sri Shastri Garu to speak. So he spoke in the divine presence. The next morning, Shastriji had to leave Puttaparthi, so he approached Bhagavan for his blessings. Swami had called him inside, and he had materialized a black and white picture and showed it to Sri Shastri Garu. And in that picture, there's this beautiful image of Swami, and behind that is the Shivalinga. And Swami explained the meaning behind this word Sai. He said Sa means Sadashiva, or Father. I is Amba, or Shiva Shakti, he said, or Divine Mother. This is when Sri Shastri Garu understood that when he spoke the other day, he spoke about the significance of Bhagavan's divine name in terms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Gayatri Mata, and he didn't speak on Shiva aspect of Bhagavan. So he realized that Swami not only filled the gap in his explanation, but also revealed that his true form is Shiva, and which is the ever blissful and sacred divine entity. So Swami is Sadashiva and Shiva Shakti. In this connection, I would like to share an experience that took place some 15 years ago. So at that, on that particular day, Bhagavan had called my father, and he graciously allowed him to do Pada Seva. So as my father was gently pressing Bhagavan's feet, he happened to see these imprints of anklets on Bhagavan's left ankle. He was surprised, and he checked on Swami's right ankle, and there was nothing in there. And so he gathered courage and he asked Bhagawan about this design and this imprints. And Swami said, this is the Siva Shakti Tattvam, he said. And he also explained that the right half of his body represents Shiva, consciousness, or creator. And the left part of his body represents Shakti, Divine Mother, or creation, Swami said. Just like a diamond, Bhagavan has various facets to him. He's a Divine Mother, he's Divine Father, inspiring teacher, best friend, and our Guru. Millions of devotees have received immense love and motherly affection from Bhagavan. All of us have received from him. I'd like to share some of those experiences where he showered so much of love and warmth on our grandmother. So it's in the year 1972, my parents have come to see Bhagavan in Puttaparthi. All of us were there, we were children. And Swami did not talk to us and he did not give us vibhuti or anything like that. My mother was very ill, but being in the presence of Swami and receiving his energy and vibrations, that just brought healing and comfort to our mother. And my father comes from a Brahma Samaj background and he never believed in any avatars, but keeping her well-being as a priority, he took all of us to Puttaparthi. So when we returned back to our hometown, slowly and steadily, my mother started to be okay and her health improved. And my father saw this phenomenal change that took place in her. And so he too developed interest in Swami's teachings and he started reading his literature and fell in love with Swami's universal teachings and it resonated with him. But his parents were not interested in him taking part in Sai activities and becoming a part of the organization. But both my parents continued to take part in Seva activities. And my father would share stories of Swami and messages with devotees. So it's in the year 1982, Bhagawan had come to our hometown to inaugurate this mandir, Sri Sathya Sai Shanti Sudha. Swami had given this name to that beautiful building. And it was built by the devotees and Swami had come. He spent 1.5 days there. He allowed 400 plus volunteers to dine with him. And that evening he gave a discourse and my grandmother was fortunate to see him from distance and it's the first time she heard him speak. And again in the year 1988, Swami very lovingly performed my wedding with Shyam in Puttaparthi. So my mother's parents and my father's mother, they joined the wedding group and Swami had invited them to the interview room. And Swami spoke to my mother's father and he said that he is a bhakta. He said, you are a Gandhian and you have sacrificed a lot. And Swami materialized a Sivalingam and gave it to him and asked him to offer Abhishekam to him, to the Shivalinga and take the Tirtham every day. So Swami spoke to my grandmother and he said that she was an honest officer and she was the first graduate from Andhra Pradesh to study at Queen Mary's College at Chennai. And he said that many people tried to take advantage of her. They tried to bribe her, but she held on to the beliefs and her principles. And Swami said that he liked that special quality in her. And he also mentioned that she used to write articles to this Brahma Samaj magazine called Anjali. And all of these details were known only to our family. Swami shared so many things about her. And Swami asked her why she was wearing a collar around her neck. And she said, Swami, I have a neck pain. And Bhagavan asked her to remove the collar and he materialized Navaratna mala and put it around her neck. And he said, from today onwards, your pain will reduce, he said. And Swami gave a beautiful sari to her. And the next day again, he called my father and gave another sari to be given to his mother. And my father said, Swami, she's already received a gift from you yesterday. And Swami said, yes, I know, but I'm giving her another gift because she has given you to me, he said. And in the year 1990, Swami had invited my grandmother to come and to attend the summer courses at Whitefield. She was in her 80s, and she had come because Swami had called her. And Bhagawan saw me in darshan lines, and he said, at that time I was pregnant, and he said, Swami will send the car and you join your grandmother, both of you come and attend the summer courses, he said. So we were very fortunate. We could take part in the summer courses. And on the last day, Bhagawan had called us for an interview. And Swami shared a lot of personal details with her. And he materialized a ring and earrings for her. And he said, Amma, you wanted this particular design for a long time and you didn't discuss it with anyone. You didn't tell your husband, but Swami knows this. Swami is giving it to you, he said. I believe it's in the year 2007, Atirudra Mahayagna took place in Chennai. And along with many devotees and students, my father accompanied Bhagawan. And on the last day of the program, Bhagawan sent a word for my father, and my father went to see Swami. And when Swami came from his room, Bhagawan was perspiring and his robe was wet. And he was shedding tears. And he came close to my father and he held my father's hands in his hands. And he said, Amma, Amma. And he cried like any family member. He was like a father. And he said, your mother is thinking of you. She's not well. And you go and spend time with her. And then Bhagawan materialized Vibhuti and gave it to my father. So when my father reached Hyderabad, my grandmother was in the hospital. And she said, I'm thinking of you and I'm asking your Baba to send you. And so he heard my prayers, she said. So when my father was working in the Sri Sathya Institute of Higher Learning, my grandmother was in Hyderabad. Bhagawan is in Puttaparthi. Whenever she thought of my father, Swami would ask my father to go and see her in Hyderabad. So this kind of a heart-to-heart connection Bhagawan had with her, though she was not his devotee. When we reflect on Bhagawan's caring and stern fatherly nature, I remember reading this book titled Prema Bandham by Sri Ramana Rao Garu, and he shares profound teachings that he's learned in the presence of Bhagawan. So I chose 3 of those stories to share with all of you today. And the first incident took place in the year 1974 during Dasaras. So on the first day, as the procession started, as Swami was gently walking forward, and there were hundreds, thousands of devotees that were seated, and there were 1,200 volunteers that were there, and Sri Raman Rao Garu was in charge there. And a group of restless devotees got up and they pushed the Sevadal and rushed toward the procession to see Swami. And the Sevadal stopped them and asked them to go back. And in all of that, there was this one young adult that approached Raman Rao Garu, and he begged him and asked him not to send him away. And he explained that he came early in the morning and he's waiting for Bhagavan's darshan along with the rest of the devotees. And he's not a part of these restless devotees that rushed forward and made noise. But Raman Rao Garu did not listen to him, and he pushed him aside. And as he needed to take care of the discipline as Bhagavan was approaching. But the devotees that left again came back, and they were wild and they pushed the Sevadal. And in all of that, there was a stampede. Raman Rao Garu fell on the sand and devotees fell on him and he was injured. So some Sevadal brothers assisted him, and they took him to the backstage of the Purnachandra auditorium, where he was asked to lie down on a bench. He was beat up and he couldn't move, and he was bleeding, and but he was able to hear everything. By then, Swami had entered the Purnachandra auditorium, and he came to the backstage, and he saw Ramanrao Garu lying on the bench in a corner. And he asked Kasturi Garu, "What is this fellow doing here? Why is he here?" he says. And Kasturi Garu then replied to Bhagawan, and he said, "Swami, Ramanrao was involved in the crowd control, and there was a stampede, and he got hurt, Swami." He said, no, he's punished for his mistake. There was this young boy who kept on explaining to him that he came early to have Bhagawan's darshan, and but he didn't pay attention to his words, and he pushed him away. That's why he had to go through this punishment, Swami said. And later on, after the program was finished, and Sevadal brothers brought Sri Ramanrao Garu to his room, and he couldn't go for darshan for 9 more days. By then, the Dasara celebrations were completed. So after the nine days, and he came back for darshan, and with the help of a few volunteers. And by then, Swami was outside, and all the Sevadal brothers and sisters were seated in line. Swami was walking among the lines, and he was distributing sweets, clothes to all the Sevadal for their excellent service. And Swami came right in front of Sri Ramanrao Garu, and he was able to touch Bhagawan's feet, but Swami did not look at him. There was no eye contact, and he felt very disappointed. And he writes in that book, he says, "Swami taught me a great lesson. When we are serving Bhagawan, when we are in his service, we need to practice compassion and patience," he says. And he shares another story that also took place in late 70s. At that time, some of the Sai organizers from East Godavari district of Andhra Pradesh had requested Swami to come and bless the devotees in that area. So Swami very lovingly agreed. And so he asked Sri Ramanrao Garu and Sri Satyamurthy Garu from Hyderabad, who's also another ardent devotee of Bhagawan, and Sri Ramarao Garu. So Swami was in the car, and these 3 devotees are there, and they were driving Bhagawan to the East Godavari area. And that particular evening, Bhagawan's discourse was scheduled in a town called Ambajipet. So as they were passing by villages and the outskirts, they saw one elderly lady and one young lady with 2 children. And Swami asked them to stop the car. And he'd asked Ramanrao Garu and Satyamurthy Garu to go and call the elderly lady and rest of the family to come closer to the car so Swami can give his blessings. So these 2 men, they got out of the car, and as they approached the family, the elderly lady told them that they were walking to Ambajipet, and they heard that Sai Baba is going to come. And the lady said that we are longing to see Sai Baba, and we want to take blessings from him. And this is when Sri Ramanrao Garu tells her that, "Amma, the Sai Baba that you're going to see in Ambajipet is here in the car." And the lady was not believing them. And so Ramanrao Garu explained to the young lady, the daughter-in-law, and asked her to see in the back seat. And so the daughter-in-law saw Bhagawan and explained to the mother-in-law, and then she believed. And they all came close to the car, and Swami got down, and Swami looked at the elderly lady and said, with so much of compassion, he said, "Your son was killed last year, and the people whoever were responsible for it, and they have taken away his property. It's in the court now, but I promise you that justice will be done. Bhagawan will help you. I'll take care of your family," he said. Amma, if you come to Ambajipet, you cannot talk to me, you cannot meet me. That is why I chose to come this way, so I can give you my blessings. This is what Swami told them. And he had a small pouch in his hand. He opened the bag and he pulled a few bundles of currency notes and gave it to the grandmother. And he gave apples and vibhuti packets to the family and asked them to return to their town. And they just turned back and they did not even take his pada namaskar, but they had devotion to him. And Sri Ramanrao Garu writes in that book, he says, it's their innocence, humility, and love for God, and the thought of Bhagavan that itself brought divine grace. Lord Narayana says to Narada, Naham vasami vaikunte na yogi hridaye ravau madbhatta yatra gayante tatra tishtami narada tatra tishtami narada. O Narada, I am not in Vaikunta. I don't live in the hearts of yogis or saints, but I am there when my devotee thinks of me, when my devotees chant my name. And there's this last story that takes place again in the late 70s. And if you all remember, Swami used to live in the room upstairs. And around the mandiram, Gopuram was being constructed at that time. And Swami had asked for workers to come and start the work around 6:30 in the evening and finish it before midnight. And Swami had called Sri Ramanrao Garu and Praful Patel to join those 4 workers and help them and finish the work before midnight. So around 6:30, Sri Ramanrao Garu and Praful Patel, they've decided to go and have their dinner because they were worried if it gets delayed, they may not get any food. So by the time they reached the Mandiram site, these 4 workers were engrossed in the project and they were on the ladders. And so these 2 joined and started working with them. But in between, they were wondering whether they can go to their rooms on time, whether they can get good sleep or not. And it was getting cold and so on and so forth. So as they were having these thoughts, the work got finished and Bhagawan arrived with a couple of students behind him. And Swami asked all of them to come down, and Swami asked them to go and wash their hands. And all of them went to wash their hands. And one of the workers, he just rushed to Bhagawan to take Pada Namaskar. And he had some mud and oil on his hands. And when he touched Bhagawan's feet, it got rubbed on his feet and also got smeared on his robe. So after that, Swami asked the students to serve all these volunteers. And naturally, the students thought that Swami wanted them to serve all the 6 people. So they've arranged 6 banana leaves. And this is when Swami told the students to serve for only those 4 workers. And he said these 2 have had their dinner already. So after the dinner was served, Swami called all the 6 volunteers and he gave them blessings. But he gave his love and attention to those 4 workers. And at the end, Sri Ramanrao Garu comes to Bhagavan and he did Pada Namaskar and he says, Swami, on your robe, we see some stains and dirt, Swami. Bhagavan says, Marakalu kavu marakatalu. They are not stains, Bangaru. They are gems, he said. And Ramanrao Garu understood that Swami was gently teaching him a lesson on being all-inclusive. They did not care about anybody. It was not intentional, but they just went ahead and ate by themselves. But Swami, being the mother, he taught them this great lesson in a gentle way. Bhagavan, being our divine mother and father, teaches us tests us, trains us, and brings this understanding and transformation in us, so we will be better people and we can serve in his mission. I would like to conclude with the bhajan. Call on the Lord you love unceasingly. He will be listening, Sri Sathya Sai. He understands the call of your heart, wanting him, needing him, Sri Sathya Sai. There is a love that he can't resist, constantly calling him, Sri Sathya Sai. Offer your love to the Lord of the universe. He will be listening. He always is. He will be listening. Sri Sathya Sai. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity. I pray to Bhagawan to shower his blessings, guidance, love, and grace on all of us. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.
Sairam, dear sister, as we celebrate this auspicious day of Vijay Dasami and pray to the Divine Mother, you have shown us and reminded us how our dearest Sai Mata has taken care of us. He gave so much love to your grandparents, and as a mother, she wanted to see her son, and Swami would rightfully send your father to her. And one more facet of the diamond you can add to Swami is he's a wonderful jeweler, and you are correct. He will always be with us. He is always listening to us. We have been waiting to listen to you for quite a long time, and we are so grateful. And it's late for you, and we are just so thankful and grateful for this beautiful talk you have given us. Thank you, dear sister.